Is being betrothed really diabolical? Let's find out in these great African tales. Adanma sat outside her hut, her eyes clouded with unshed tears. The cool night breeze brushed against her skin, but it did nothing to soothe her torment. She stared blankly at the darkened sky, whispering to herself, "What have I done to deserve this type of shameful love?" Her heart ached as she recalled the promises of happiness she once believed in. Tradition had sealed her fate before she could even understand love, binding her to a man who now treated her like a stranger. From childhood, she has been told she was lucky to be betrothed to Dinta, the most handsome and successful hunter in Aniocha village. Every maiden dreamed of marrying him, and every parent wished for a son-in-law like him. Yet, here she was, a wife in name only, drowning in loneliness. 6 months into her marriage, everything has changed. Dinta, once caring, became cold and distant. He came home late, barely acknowledged her presence, and refused to touch her. Night passed with her lying alone, longing for the affection that never came. Adanma wiped a tear from her cheek and sighed heavily. She has done everything a good wife should do. She cooked his favorite meals, ensured his home was neat, and spoke to him with kindness. But none of it mattered. The villagers whispered about her misery, yet no one dared question the tradition that has forced this marriage upon her. She has no choice but to endure it. But for how long? Dinta has always been the pride of Aniocha village. Strong, fearless, and skilled in the art of hunting. He was the man every father wished for as a son-in-law. Tall and broad-shouldered, his presence alone commanded respect. He could bring down the fiercest games with single arrow, providing meat for the village, even in the harshest season. Women admired him from a distance, hoping for a chance to win his heart. Mothers prayed for their daughters to marry him, but unknown to many, Dinta's heart already belonged to someone. Before his betrothal, he has loved Olanma, a beauty from the neighboring village. Their love was strong, the kind that made even the gods envious. He had dreamed of making her his wife, but fate had other plans. By the time he was old enough to marry, he was reminded of his obligation. He was betrothed to Adanma from birth, a bond arranged by their families. Dinta has begged his father to break the arrangement, to let him choose his own bride, but tradition was firm. No man honored a betrothal without consequences, and so, with a heavy heart, he married Adanma, a woman he barely knew. Though he performed his duties as a husband at first, his love for Olanma never faded. He saw Adanma as an obstacle, a cruel reminder of a choice he never had, and so his heart hardened against her, leading them into a marriage built on silence and resentment. The entire village gathered to celebrate the union of Adanma and Dinta. The air was filled with the sound of drums, the scent of roasted meat, and the laughter of well-wishers. Women danced gracefully, their wrappers swaying, while men gulped down palm wine. Adanma sat beside Dinta, dressed in the finest beads and wrappers her family could afford. Her face was painted with woolly designs, marking her as a bride. But beneath the elaborate decorations, her heart pounded with fear. She barely knew Dinta, yet she was expected to build a life with him. Dinta, on the other hand, wore a practical smile. He greeted guests, nodded at elders, and raised his cup in acknowledgement of their praises. But inside, he was drowning in sorrow, and he watched Adanma. He knew she was not the woman he wanted. The woman he loved was somewhere else, watching from the shadows. Night fell, and the celebration ended. Adanma was led into Dinta's hut, her new home. The village elders blessed their union, urging them to build a happy life together. But behind closed doors, the air between them was thick and tension. As Adanma lay beside her new husband, she hoped for a future filled with love and companionship. But as she reached out to him, he turned away. his back facing her. It was then that she realized her battle for happiness has only just begun. In the first few weeks, Adanma tried to be the perfect wife. She woke up early to fetch water, prepared Dinta's meal with care, and ensured their health was always neat. She greeted him with a warm smile when he returned from hunting, but his responses were always short, almost dismissive. At first, she thought it was just an adjustment period. Perhaps he needed time to get used to their new life together. But as months passed, his distance only grew. He started coming home late, often reeking of palm wine. Some nights, he didn't even return at all. Adanma felt like a prisoner in her own home. She longs for Dinta's affection, for the love she has been promised, but it never came. He barely looked at her, and when he did, his eyes held no warmth. She wondered what she has done wrong. One evening, she prepared his favorite meal, pounded yam and spicy bushmeat soup. When he arrived, she greeted him softly, and they set the table food before him. He barely touched it. Instead, he muttered an excuse about being tired and went to bed. That night, Adanma cried silently, her heart heavy with rejection. She had heard stories of love in marriage, of husbands who adored their wives. Why was hers different? As she lay awake, staring at the wooden ceiling of their hut, she realized something. Dinta's heart was never hers to begin with, and perhaps it never would be. One evening, as the village prepared for a moonlight dance, Adanma noticed Dinta slipping away. Something in her heart told her to follow him. She moved silently, keeping a safe distance as he made his way through the bush path that led to the river. What she saw shattered her heart. There, under the glow of the moon, Dinta stood with another woman, Olanma. He held her close, whispering words meant only for lovers. His hand caresses her face, his eyes filled with an affection Adanma has never seen before. Tears streamed down her face as she clenched her fists. This was the man she was supposed to call her husband, yet his love belonged to someone else. She wanted to scream, to comfort them, but her legs felt weak. Instead, she turned and ran back home, her sobs lost in the night breeze. That night, she did not sleep. She sat by the door, waiting for Dinta's return. When he finally entered, his face carried no remorse. He did not complain or explain, nor did he try to hide it. Adanma could not hold it any longer. Why, Dinta? Why did you marry me if you love another? He scoffed, his voice cold. I had no choice. The words cut deep. She had always feared he did not love her, but hearing it aloud made it unbearable. She realized then that no amount of effort could make him love her. Her marriage was a prison, and there was no escape. Adanma could no longer endure the torment. She packed a small bundle of clothes the next morning and made her way to her father's compound. As soon as she saw her parents, she fell on her knees, weeping. Mama, Papa, I cannot stay in that house again, she cried. Dinta does not love me. He treats me like I do not exist. Her father sighed, his expression grave. He had been expecting this day to come. Adanma, my daughter, I understand your pain, but you know the ways of our people. You were betrothed to Dinta before you were even born. You are his wife, and you must endure. Adanma shook her head violently. But Papa, he loves another woman. I saw them together. Her mother, who had remained silent, finally spoke. My child, a man is allowed to take more than one wife. If his heart belongs to another, then he must do what is right. Marry her. Adanma felt her heart sink. So that's it? I must just accept this fate? Her father placed a hand on her shoulder. Marriage is not always easy, my daughter, but living is not an option. The only solution is for Dinta to take Olanma as his second wife. Perhaps then he will treat you better. Adanma's stomach twisted in knots. She had come here seeking an escape, but instead she was given a sentence to share her husband with another woman. Was this truly the only way? The decision was made. The elders of Anyocha gathered and agreed that for peace to reign, Dinta must marry Olanma as his second wife. The villagers prepared for another wedding, though it was a quiet affair compared to Adanma. On the day of the ceremony, Adanma stood in the shadows, watching as Dinta and Olanma exchanged vows under the watchful eyes of the elders. The joy on his face was undeniable. He smiled, laughed, and held Olanma's hand with tenderness, something he has never done with Adanma. The celebration was small, but filled with genuine happiness, at least for the newlyweds. The villagers whispered among themselves, some feeling pity for Adanma, others believed it was for the best. At least, now he can love his wife properly, they said, as if Adanma did not exist. That night, Olanma moved into their home, and Adanma felt her heart shatter into pieces. Her co-wife was not cruel, but her very presence was a reminder of her failure. She was the first wife, yet she felt like a stranger in her own home. Days passed, and the household dynamic changed. Dinta, who once barely spoke, now laughed and talked freely with Olanma. He showered her with attention, bringing her gifts from his hunting trips, while Adanma received nothing but silence. If marrying Olanma was supposed to fix things, why did it feel like Adanma had only lost small? Despite taking Olanma as his second wife, Dinta's hatred for Adanma did not fade. If anything happened, it intensified. He went out of his way to avoid her, treating her as though she was invisible. The villagers took notice. Why does Dinta despise Adanma so much? They murmured among themselves. Even with Olanma as his wife, his heart is still filled with resentment towards the first. Some began to believe there was a curse upon their marriage. Perhaps the gods are punishing them, the woman whispered. No man should despise his first wife this way, unless something is wrong. Adanma, however, no longer had the strength to question it. She moved through the days like a shadow, doing what was expected of her, but feeling nothing inside. Olanma, for her part, tried to make peace. Adanma, I did not wish to come between you and Dinta, she said one evening, but what can I do? He loves me. Adanma met her gaze but said nothing. She was tired of fighting a battle that has already been lost. The days turned into weeks, and the bitterness only grew. Adanma, once the proud wife of the village greatest hunter, was now nothing more than an afterthought. The village continued to whisper, "This is not normal," they said. "There is something deeper at play." But no one, not even Adanma, knew the truth behind Dinta's hatred. Time passed, and Olanma gave birth to a son, then another. The entire village rejoiced. Dinta now has strong heirs to carry on his legacy, they cheered. Dinta was overjoyed. He held his sons in his arms, his pride evident for all to see. He showered Olanma with gifts and affection, ensuring that she and their children lacked nothing. Meanwhile, Adanma watched from a distance. She had not yet conceived, and though no one openly spoke of it, she knew what they were thinking. "She is barren," they whispered. "Perhaps that is why Dinta does not love her." The weight of the unspoken words crushed her. It was not enough that she was unloved. Now, she was being seen as useless, a woman without purpose. She prayed for the gods to grant her a child, but the months stretched into years, and her womb remained empty. Dinta, who already treated her with indifference, now had another reason to despise her. He avoided her even more, spending all his time with Olanma and their sons. Adanma, once the first wife, was now nothing more than a shadow in her own home. She had tried everything, prayers, sacrifices, medicine from the village healer, but nothing worked. And so, she accepted her fate. She was nothing, a wife by title, but in truth, she was already forgotten. Adanma no longer cried. What was the point? Her pain has become a part of her existence, as natural as breathing. Each day, she woke up before dawn, prepared food for the household, and watched as her husband ate with his other wife, while pretending she did not exist. Her mother visited one day, her face etched with worry. "My daughter, you are fading," she said. touching Adanma's gut face. "You have lost weight and your eyes carry no life." Adanma forced a smile. "I am fine, Mama." Her mother wasn't convinced. "Come home with me, at least for a little while." But Adanma shook her head. "I cannot. The village will speak. They will say I abandoned my home." Her mother sighed. "Would that be so bad? What kind of home is this, where you are not wanted?" Adanma looked at her, pain flickering in her eyes. "A woman does not leave her husband, Mama. That is our way." Her mother swallowed hard, knowing there was nothing more she could say. She embraced her daughter tightly before leaving, tears in her eyes. That night, as Adanma lay alone in her hut, she wondered if this was all life had to offer. Was she doomed to exist in silence, trapped in a loveless marriage, bound by a tradition that had stolen her happiness? She closed her eyes, wishing for an escape, but deep down, she knew there was none. As the years passed, Adanma's sorrow became the subject of endless whisper in Anyocha. The elders sat beneath the great Iroko tree, discussing her misfortune in a hushed voice. Some pitied her, others believed she has done nothing terrible in her past life to deserve such suffering. How can a man hate his wife so much, even after marrying the woman he loves? One elder pounded. There is something unnatural about it, another agreed. It's as if an unseen force is keeping them apart. The villagers were divided. Some believed Dinta was simply following his heart, that love could not be forced. Others felt he was cruel and had dishonored the sacred bond of marriage. But despite their arguments, no one dared challenge the tradition that bound Adanma to him. Adanma, meanwhile, had stopped listening to their gossip. Their pity did nothing to change her fate. She moved through her days in silence, a shadow of the vibrant girl she has once been. One evening, as she walked through the marketplace, an old woman stopped her. "My child," the woman said, her voice low, "you are carrying a burden that is not yours to bear." Adanma looked at her, confused. "What do you mean?" The woman only shook her head. "The truth will come to light soon, but you must be strong." Adanma felt a chill run down her spine. Could there really be a reason behind Dinta's hatred? One evening, Adanma's mother arrived unexpectedly. She has aged beyond her age, worry and sorrow eaching lying in her once smooth face. "My daughter," she said, her voice breaking, "I can no longer watch you suffer." Adanma sighed. "Mama, I have no choice. I am his wife." Her mother's eyes filled with tears. "And what has that brought you? Years of loneliness, pain, a life without love?" Adanma swallowed hard. She wanted to tell her mother that she has accepted her fate, that she has stopped hoping for happiness. But deep inside, a small voice whispered, "Is this truly all my life will be?" Her mother shook her hands. "There's something I must tell you," she said. "Something I should have told you long ago." Adanma's heart pounded. "What is it?" Her mother hesitated before speaking. "Dinta's mother never wanted him to marry you." Adanma frowned. "But she agreed to the betrothal." "She had no choice," her mother said. "Your father and Dinta's father made the arrangement when you were just babies. But before she died, Dinta's mother placed a curse on his first wife." Adanma gasped. "A curse?" "Yes, she swore that Dinta would never love the woman who took him away from Olanma, that his heart would always belong to another." Adanma felt the weight of those words settle over her like a dark cloud. Could this truly be the reason for her suffering? Adanma could not sleep that night. Her mother's revelation haunted her. If what she said was true, then Dinta's hatred was not entirely his own. He has been bound by his mother's dying words, unable to break free from the curse. The next day, she sought out the old woman from the marketplace. "Mama, tell me the truth," Adanma begged. "Is there truly a curse?" The old woman studied her for a long moment before nodding. "Yes, child. His mother's spirit still lingers, keeping him from ever loving you." Tears filled Adanma's eyes. "Is there something that can be done?" The woman sighed. "Curses are not easily broken, but if you wish to free yourself, you must leave." Adanma stiffened. "I cannot leave tradition." "Tradition has already stolen your happiness. the woman interrupted. You must decide if you wish to live the rest of your life this way. Adanma walked away with her mind in turmoil. Could she truly live? Would the village ever allow it? She thought of the years she had spent in silence, of the love she had never known. For the first time, she wondered if she had courage to choose herself. The day Adanma made a decision, the sky was cloudless, the air still. She packed a small bundle of clothes and took one last look at the home she had suffered in for years. She walked through the village, her head held high, ignoring the curious stares and the whispering murmurs. Where is she going? Does Dinta know? She cannot leave. A wife belongs to her husband. But Adanma did not stop. She reached her father's compound, where her parents stood waiting. I am leaving, Papa, she firmly said. Her father looked at her for a long time. You know what this means? I do. Her mother stepped forward, taking her hands. Then go, my child. Find happiness where you can. Adanma turned and walked towards the village gate, her heart pounding. She did not know where she would go, but she knew she would never return. Behind her, the whispers grew louder, but for the first time in years, she felt free. Adanma traveled to a neighboring village where no one knew her past. She found shelter with an elderly widow who welcomed her with open arms. You are a strong spirit, the woman told her. You will find a new life here. Adanma learned to weave baskets and trade goods in the market. She found joy in the small things, a kind smile, a warm meal, the simple freedom of choosing her own path. Though her heart still carried wounds, they began to heal. She no longer woke up during the day. She no longer felt like a prisoner. One day, a man approached her stall. He was gentle, with kind hands that held no judgment. You are new here, he said. Adanma nodded. Yes, I am starting over. The man smiled. Then perhaps we should start as friends. For the first time in a long time, Adanma allowed herself to smile. She did not know what the future held, but for the first time, she had the freedom to find out. Back in Anyocha, Adanma's departure became legend. Some saw her as a disgrace, a woman who has defied tradition. Others saw her as a woman of courage, one who has reclaimed her destiny. Olanma, though happy with Dinta, sometimes wondered if Adanma had made the right choice. She had 2 sons and a husband's love, but there were days when she envied the freedom Adanma found. Dinta, however, remained unchanged. He never spoke of Adanma, never searched for her. The cause has done its work. His heart has never been hers to begin with. As years passed, the younger generation of women began to question the traditions that bound their mothers and grandmothers. They spoke in hushed voices about Adanma, the woman who has dared to choose herself. Some tradition held the village together, others they realized needed to be broken. And so, slowly but surely, change began to creep in Anyocha. No woman was ever again betrothed at birth. And though Adanma never returned, her story lived on, a story of sorrow, of strength, and of the courage to walk away from a life that was never truly hers. Thank you so much for watching and listening to my story. Please do like, comment, and subscribe for more videos. See you next time.